And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. Hope you guys have been enjoying your summer. I am Bob McDonald, and with me, my co-host Jimmy Lemke.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Jimmy Lemke, you can find on PantherU at PantherU on Twitter and at PantherU.com.
I've been there so much often lately.
Yeah, so
I don't know if I'm on the website very often.
Well, it exists still, so
it still exists. GoDaddy charged me for hosting yesterday, so it's still there.
Well, yeah. So I guess if GoDaddy is GoDaddy. Okay.
Get over it. I like GoDaddy. They're fine. Their customer service was fantastic. That's why I really.
They're like stalkers, man. I think I had GoDaddy once, and they were complete stalkers. Got to be better than HostGator because I have that, and they charge me $200 a year, and for what I don't know. It's kind of stupid, but anyway. And you can follow us on Twitter at HorizonRT. Jimmy, we had today. Today we absolutely had to talk, and we had to go with our go-to Detroit Mercy guy, Carrick Jones.
How's it going, folks?
Yes,
it's fantastic, Carrick. I'm really happy that we're able to bring you on and have this conversation because
at last our National Nightmare is over. Detroit Mercy finally has a coach.
Yeah, I can't believe it. And I think the funniest thing is how quickly the narrative within our fan base changed once they hired someone. Once again, I'm about at the point where I find most of the Detroit Mercy fans laughable at best. But as soon as Vowell said, we were looking at him since mid-April, everybody's like, oh, it's okay. We're not behind the eight ball. We have 6 players on our roster. It could be 5. I couldn't tell you for certain. But Mike Davis has a long road ahead of him because Bakari and Jermaine left the program in a state of abyss. I think is probably the best word to describe what's going on.
I like the word shambles.
Yeah, shambles could be one. Yeah,
shambles is a good one too.
I've been using dumpster fire. That seems to work.
Dumpster fire is our thing.
Okay, fine.
Dumpster fire is our thing. That is Amanda Braun copyrighted dumpster fire years ago.
All right. Well, yeah. You know what? Given the 2 months of silence, it might be more of a tunnel, a sewer fire maybe. Because it's under the surface. You might not see it, and nobody's gonna see it until you walk down to the sewer. And nobody wants to do that.
Maybe more like a Democratic People's Republic of Detroit Mercy kind of thing.
The whole I have engaged. Honestly, I'm just kind of surprised that this finally happened. That they finally got a head coach.
You got Oakland fans flying drones over Detroit Mercy's campus, dropping in flash drives with videos of winning basketball. Like, hey, you could have this again. You could have this again.
You had
They don't win very much either, though. So you're forgetting they're choke artists.
Oh, I don't need to forget because obviously I don't want to forget, especially after last season.
Well,
It got to the point where Matt Dudek was having a coach's auction on his Twitter account, which, by the way, was won by my dog Harry. By the way, so he's very disappointed that he barked in disapproval when he found out he wasn't getting the job, and I was a little disappointed because now I got to pay for kibble.
Yeah, frankly, your dog is going to bark for no matter what the reason was. Your dog doesn't need much reason.
You're not wrong, and I make no guarantees that he won't bark again, even on this podcast, because why not?
Technically, I think your dog is the most frequent guest we have on the Horizon Roundtable.
Did you hear that, Harry? You're the most frequent guest on the Horizon Roundtable. Congratulations.
Don't get them started.
No, let's not do that. I have 2 dogs. I got one that I've got my older dog Bella, who doesn't bark at all, and I got Harry over here who won't shut up. So he's
all
perfect.
Right.
He's perfect.
Enough about your dogs.
All right,
Carrick,
let it rip.
You Mike Davis?
Yes.
Do you like or dislike the hire?
I mean, he wins everywhere he goes.
Mm-hmm.
I like the hire. I wasn't really enthused with the press conference. He is a very slow talker. Wow. I mean, wow.
Hey, is 594 winning percentage, 352 and 241. You're absolutely right. He does win everywhere he goes. I mean, he was in the NCAA tournament just like a year before he got fired from UAB.
Yep.
Yeah, no, he wins, and it seems to me that he has a plan, and he thinks he can turn it around quick. And he does have some pieces left on the roster, and then you go in and throw in his son, who's very talented. I tell you what, his son looks good. He is a real scrappy shooter. You know, he's 6'1", but he's kind of got that long, lanky body. Can just drill shots from anywhere mid-range or from the three-point arc. And I love Josh McFawley back, too. He announced he was coming back today. So
they got
a nice little backcourt tandem with those two. But everything else is very much in the air. Gerald Blackshear's been hurt for the last 2 years. Cole Long's there. If you like white guys from Nova Scotia who can't hit threes.
That's what I'm talking about.
I guess the German kid might still be there. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, it's looking like walk-ons are going to play unless this guy can pull a rabbit out of his hat. But the rumor is we're getting all of Texas Southern's recruits.
Really?
So that would put another freshman point guard in, 3 JUCO guards. They got to find big men and quick, though.
Yeah.
And we're definitely behind the 8 ball for that. I would have to think probably some grad transfers that may or may not pan out are probably the best situation. But it's exciting just to have somebody after not having someone for 2 months. And I hope he wins because we were kind of sold a load of crap with the last guy. So
that's true.
And I did not expect that we would be in as bad of a situation as we are now. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I think with Mike Davis, Detroit lucked out by getting him. I mean, given you didn't even know who they were going to get even before they were talking about Mike Davis. So the fact that they got a guy who, as Jimmy said, wins everywhere he goes. I mean, and the fact that he's going to have the fact that he's had such a success at Texas Southern. I mean, yes, it's a they're in the SWAC, which is famous for playing a bunch of having to travel everywhere for non-conference games and getting pounded.
Well, it's an HBCU league,
yeah.
So we have to remember that where the Horizon League has problems, we're not nearly the problems that the SWAC and the MEAC have. So
no, and you got to take that, and I take that into consideration when you talk about Texas, what Mike Davis and Texas Southern, and that he was able to, that he has been able, and he again, I think in the case of Texas Southern, that was a situation where he was hired really late in the cycle. I think I think I mentioned in one of the earlier podcasts where he was actually hired in
it was an August hire.
It was an August hire.
They had that what was his name? Tony Harvey, right?
Yeah.
They had Tony Harvey, and he resigned. It was a weird thing. I remember it being a weird reason he resigned. I don't remember exactly why. I don't think it ever really came up why he resigned from that job. But Mike Davis was available, and he was available. So
yeah,
he was available, and he's a good coach. So getting around to it. I don't know what it was that I don't know what it exactly was that he flamed out for Tony Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that it was Mike Davis was available, and that's kind of what it was for him here. Is that Mike Davis is a guy who's kind of above what the SWAC is. I mean, even after UAB, I think if he had sat around for a year, he probably would have had a better job than Texas Southern to go into. But it was available to him, and this is maybe not exactly the maybe not exactly the same kind of thing, but it's something where he's, it's something where Detroit Mercy had a real need, and they needed to hit a home run because they didn't need another Bakari Alexander, where they're not 100% sure they got a guy that, maybe they're sure, but they needed a guy who can win and he's proven to win. So they kind of needed to get something. And, as far for being so late, I think even if this had happened at the Final Four, I would have thought that Mike Davis would have been a pretty good hire for them.
Yeah.
So I think that Detroit Mercy did a heck of a job, finding their coach. Did it take a while? Yes.
Yeah.
Did they have some missteps along the way? I'm sure. But you could do a lot worse.
Yeah.
For anybody who's curious, the reason I said that Tony Harvey flamed out is because Tony Harvey's now an assistant coach at UIC.
Oh, okay. Of course he is.
FYI.
So, so they'll meet. So that's going to be interesting. I think when you look at Mike Davis's track record, it's pretty clear that the guy likes a challenge. I mean, the guy you're talking about a guy who had to replace Bobby Knight, and what kind of challenge was that? He just had to play that down for as long as he had, and and did the same thing again with Texas Southern. Again, a challenge. So, and right now there's no really bigger challenge right now than Detroit Mercy at this point in time.
I mean, yes and no. There's inroads. I mean, it's a good recruiting territory. Mm-hmm. We're not that poor. And contrary to what Matt Dudek believes, the ring's not that bad. There's things in place. I think the hardest thing for him is going to be how does he transition this year because they're so late. I don't know who's even available.
Yeah.
Even if they get the Texas Southern recruits, that still doesn't really help with the fact that they don't really have any big men on the roster.
Well, I don't think Detroit Mercy would really be planning on winning this year, anyways.
No.
I think you got like 5 or 6 scholarship guys. If he can bring in 4 or maybe 5 scholarship guys and walk into the season, maybe like pick up a few more walk-ons than you would have otherwise been comfortable with, and then you can walk in and say, okay, you can sit in any kid's living room and say, look, I've got 3 scholarships, from I've got 3 open scholarships. You're transferring out of your team at break. You want to, you fall of 2018, you decided you didn't want to be at your school anymore, but because you played, you're not going to be able to. You want to transfer, you want to be on scholarship somewhere. I have a scholarship open for you right now. That's something that a lot of schools have made the decision to not carry the full 13. Because you can pick up a guy.
Yeah. I
mean, Green Bay's got Sandy Cohen right now, who they wouldn't have had had they not had a scholarship available. So it was it was to their benefit that they had that scholarship available for them. I know we've done it a couple times, and I know that Detroit Mercy is in a unique spot right now where they can kind of just let this upcoming season, they can just take their lumps. Maybe pull in those guys, but be like, look, I've got starting spots open next year. This is a program where we have lofty expectations, and we're in a conference that is down, and we can step in and put some things together and win a title in the 1920 season if we do everything enough right. I honestly believe that if Mike Davis can turn it around quick enough where he can win at that level that quick. I think he could have a Detroit Titans team winning or sharing a conference title by the 2020 season. And that's the kind of turnaround that can be afforded them right now. And part of it is not having 12 players on scholarship. As we've seen over here in Milwaukee, I mean, we lost some strong players, both Jeter recruits and Val Jordan recruits. Val Jordan recruited Jeremiah Bell, Bryce NZ and Brock Stahl being Rob Jeter guys. all three of those guys are gone now. So, but Pat Baldwin had to coach them that full year, that first year. So now you know that anybody who's around, if you really need to, if there's a bunch of people who don't like how Mike Davis coaches, a lot of those kids are already gone. So it's not quite a blank slate, but you know that most of the guys that Mike Davis will have in year one, most of them are going to be guys he chose to be there, and they chose to be under him. So you know that Davis has got a blank enough slate, and he's a good enough coach, and like Carrick said, it's a good enough recruiting area that, and they have the scholarships available where if you play it right, you're going to take lumps in 2018-19, but Detroit Mercy's a team that could, turn around and make a run at a title just the following season.
Yeah, and the big transfer on the market right now is from just down the road at U of D Jesuit. I can't pronounce his last name right, so I'm not even going to try. But Greg, one of the big Nigerian kids they had is leaving Illinois. And that is a guy who we're rumored to be after, which wouldn't be surprising, given that he's from right down the street. That would go ahead and fill your huge big man hole in your second year because he's 6'10". And he was good enough to go to Illinois. So if they can land a guy like that, I don't know if that's the route Mike Davis is going to take, but we'll find out.
Yeah, I think with the situation, to Jimmy's point, it was a foregone conclusion that this season was going to be. It's a transitional season. It's a throwaway year, but you knew that. But they knew that going in.
But who knows?
That's true.
This conference is so down so often. You never know when NKU's going to slip up, or Wright State's going to get upset by somebody in the conference tournament, or Oakland's going to do what Oakland does. So you never know when that opportunity is there. I mean, hell, we're 15 months removed from Youngstown State being a couple points away from the conference title game. I mean, that's really we were a few shakes away from having a 9 versus a 10 in the conference championship game. In Motor City Madness. So,
and we're 3 months removed from Cleveland State being in the conference championship game as a 9 seed.
So there's literally nothing that stops, a Mike Davis coached Detroit Mercy team from maybe being that team that makes the surprise. So I don't want Detroit Mercy fans to hear me saying that this is a throwaway year and think, well, screw that guy. He's not giving even this team a chance. What I'm saying is that, they could walk into 2019-20 as a team expected to challenge for a conference championship. That doesn't mean they're precluded from doing it again.
There would have to be a lot for that to happen.
This is a guy that wins quickly. When he took over at Indiana, obviously it was a situation where it was a different situation with Bobby Knight, but he didn't fall off. In year 2, they went to the Final Four. At UAB, he took over. They had a rough year in 06-07, and then the next year, they were right there. They were right there at the top of CUSA. At Texas Southern, he took over. It was a late in the year thing. They were already one of the better teams in the SWAC, but he kept that ship online. He kept that ship heading in the right direction, and then he hit the ground running. And he had what did they have? 4 NCAA tournament appearances in his 6 years there. I mean, this is a guy who hits the ground running, and this is a guy who we talk about the kid from UD Jesuit who's transferring out of Illinois. And he's able to go to that kid and say, okay, you wanna go play for a coach who can help you win, and maybe you're not going to get to that high major or even that major level. I'm at a mid-major school. I have the opportunity for you, and I've been there. There are not many coaches in the Horizon League, or have even ever been in the Horizon League, that have been to a Final Four. And I would put Mike Davis may not be Brad Stevens, but he's more Brad Stevens than Raleigh Massimino, if you know what I'm saying.
Vividly, yeah. But yeah, you are correct with the way that the Horizon League is. There is the off chance that a Mike Davis team could theoretically surprise some people. But honestly, I just there would have to be a lot happen for that to be the case this year. Next year, on the other hand, you, especially given the fact that you have so much roster turnover, you're going to have so many new that you're going to have so many people coming in, and you're going to have so much of a transition, and they're basically going to be all Mike Davis's guys at that point. 1920 looks like that could be their year. It really could be. I mean,
when I talk about the kid from the Illini transfer,
yes,
I am not talking about as much as this is a kid who is a flyer. As much as I'm talking about, like, Detroit Mercy is in the position where they can take a flyer on a kid that may have some issue. Maybe it's a health issue. Maybe the kid's had injury problems. Maybe the kid's like a weird tweener that doesn't really fit at the high major level. Maybe the kid is maybe the kid's a grade problem. Maybe the kid is a behavioral problem. And Mike Davis, being a guy who worked for Coach Knight, thinks that he can turn the guy around. Either way, if Mike Davis has a spot available, which he's got many, he can take a flyer on one of these kids. So what's attractive to me, if I'm Mike Davis looking at the Detroit Mercy job, is that you're basically given this mold of this clay hunk of clay, and you've got the mold, and you can do with it whatever you want. There are not a lot of schools that are like that. When Val Jordan left us, Pat Baldwin had a roster that was, it was slimmer, but he didn't have the flexibility that Davis does at Detroit. Also, because Detroit Mercy is a private school, you're able to do some things that we're not able to do, that most of the conference isn't able to do. So there's some flexibility there that they've got, where a coach can walk in there, and if he knows what he's doing, hint, Mike Davis, he could legitimately put together some strong, you can legitimately put together a strong team in a year. And yeah, of course, 1920 has a better outlook than 1819, depending on who they get. But what matters most is that Mike Davis has the flexibility to do with this roster what he wants.
And he will.
What'll be interesting to watch is his best player from Texas Southern was an All-American as a redshirt sophomore. Demontrae Jefferson is rumored to be considering transferring to sit out a year to play 1 year. Which is funny because
at one point in time, Demontrae Jefferson was supposed to go to Cleveland State. I don't know what happened that didn't happen in the end of Texas Southern, but it would be poetic justice that Demontrae Jefferson ends up in the Horizon League anyway. So he was getting if I understand it correctly, he was slated to go to Cleveland State, and something happened. I don't know what happened. Probably, because it was, I think it was the last year of the Gary Waters era, so you never know what happens. But he ended up at Texas Southern, spent, and he did really well at Texas Southern for Mike Davis, and it's interesting because when you look at, and I can't remember where I saw it on Twitter, because I think he was actually tweeting about it himself, thinking about potentially transferring to Detroit. And that really says something about Mike Davis, that you have his former players wanting to come with him, to be a part of something, because they were a part of something already at Texas Southern, and this is so that level of loyalty, I think, is going to from his players, I think is going to serve him very well, especially given kind of the volatility of mid majors as it is. So we'll see. I think it's I think the only thing is that you get your guy. Detroit finally gets his guy. I hate to play devil's advocate, but I'm going to, because why not? What was the holdup? I mean, seriously, the guy was sitting there. What was the holdup?
From what he said in the press conference, he didn't want to leave.
All right.
I think Texas Southern is definitely in a as a program, it's in a little bit better place than some of the other ones.
Sure.
It's definitely in a better place than like Alabama, A&M, or definitely.
Yeah.
Grambling.
Definitely.
Not as far as like what the basketball program, that the team, as much as like the culture. The culture at Texas State is stronger. Now, I'll say this: June 13th, Demontrae Jefferson writes.
Oh.
Demontrae Jefferson writes. So the NCAA passes the transfer rule. Emoji with the eyes, emoji with the sly smile. Then he says, "My coach is leaving." Same two emojis. God is good, God is great. Some people are like, "What the hell?" So he's like, "If I don't go with Texas State, if I don't go with my coach, Texas State is still my number one option, 100.
Sure. Uh-huh.
Loyalty is just a big part of my life. Prayers, 100. Then."
Your emoji game is not strong right now.
My emoji game is awful, and that's fine.
No
I like
kidding. You sound like that Buick commercial right now.
He retweets the Detroit Titans account announcing Mike Davis. He retweets somebody saying, "Where can I get a Trey Jefferson jersey?" He retweets somebody else talking about Detroit. He retweets Rashad Phillips saying, "Got to bring Trey Jefferson and Damon Harge to Detroit with him. Two of the most exciting small point guards I've seen in a while. The city needs them." Rashad, you got to explain to me what the hashtag Yoda is about.
Okay, that's his new thing.
Yeah, it is.
He's decided that he's no longer in the training game, and he's now in the basketball analytics game.
Okay.
And I think he's got a pay site. Where he breaks down
sportstalk2319.com.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm not in front of my computer, but he knows his stuff. I did quite a few games with him when I was a student. He's a real smart cat.
I would love to have Rashad Phillips on this podcast at some point.
Get a hold of him. He'll probably come on.
You're not kidding.
I love listening to that guy talk hoops. He's great. Well, moving on.
Yeah.
Somebody tweets, "Make sure to bring Trey Jefferson with you." He retweets that. So says, Texas Southern's Demontrae Jefferson will consider joining former head coach Mike Davis at Detroit next season, per his Twitter page. The 5'7" guard averaged 23.3 points, 3.1 rebounds, 4.1 assists per game last year for the Tigers. He retweeted that.
Yep.
And then he says, "Let's not ignore Texas State is still my number one option."
Texas Southern. Texas Southern, not Texas State.
Wasn't
Texas
it originally
Southern.
Texas State?
I don't know.
No,
No.
Texas State is in San Marcos. It's a.
Okay.
I went to high school with a guy who played basketball for Texas State. John Ryback originally played at Akron. That's a habit. Sorry, Texas Southern. Apologies to the Bobcats in San Marcos for confusing you guys with Texas Southern, but
actually, every time you said that, I was thinking of the movie Necessary Roughness from like the 90s and stuff with Scott Bakula playing the quote unquote 35-year-old quarterback.
I also like Sinbad as the professor coming back to play defensive line. One thing a lot of people may not realize: Jason Bateman as the running back / the big time donor's kid
who couldn't read. I think it was the problem.
He had problems. That movie was great. It was so like campy.
Yeah, it was.
Like so many 80s, early 90s sports movies. I mean, Kathy Ireland was the kicker.
Oh, that's true.
Welcome to football. Like, it's just so stupid, but it was good.
But it's Texas Southern, not Texas State. I would be very interested to see Demontrae Jefferson make the transition from Texas State to Detroit, and again, that would be kind of a thing for them for 1920. But if you get him to transfer, there's your starting point guard right there. Period.
Well, but here's the thing: if they get him.
Yeah.
And they bring the other guy who's committed, who's a point guard.
Yeah.
And they have his kid who's also a point guard. What are they going to run 3 point guards? I mean, 3 point guards under 6 foot tall. I mean, they could. I wouldn't put it past Mike Davis to do that.
I mean, if there's a conference that you can really run a bunch of guards small ball in, right? Horizon League.
Dude, Cleveland State had Tyree Appleby and Cash Thomas on the floor at the same time for a bunch of chunks last year. So the Horizon League if any place could do that, it would be them. It would be the Horizon League. Plus, the way, but just based on his numbers, just based on what his performance at Texas Southern, you'd be crazy not to take a look at him again.
Oh yeah,
those
are K Felder numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't want to. Detroit should not be. All of their options are open. So, and if you got a guy who is committed to your coach, has really good numbers, and has pretty much pointed out the loyalty factor, man, see what you can do.
I just think it's going to be funny if he brings up all these recruits from the South to Detroit. These kids are from Orlando and Houston and, all over. 2 of their JUCOs are from Florida.
These poor bastards are going to learn.
Somebody better get these kids some coats.
Jeez.
Like, our campus it's small, but it's not that small. It's cold to walk across in the winter. I mean, there was days back in 2012 and 2013 I thought I needed a parka and maybe one of those things from the second Star Wars movie.
The Tauntaun?
Yeah.
I keep telling UWM planners that they got to start doing what Green Bay did. And at Green Bay, you can get around their entire campus without going outside.
Yeah, that's how Canisius is.
Yeah, that same Cleveland State did that years ago. They have the interconnector. Oh, believe me, that's great. They had that for. I mean, there were only like a handful of buildings at Cleveland State that weren't connected, but they solved that problem when they did their big old building.
Personally,
plan.
I love walking around in the winter when it's cold as hell.
All right, good for you, Dan Newcomb.
I know that I am very far in the minority in that.
You think?
No. I hate it.
All right. It's good for you. I'm not. Cold sucks, but I can't get away from it. So,
yep.
So there's that. So, the environment's going to be an interesting. As it is with everything else, it's going to be, there's going to be a change. There's going to be a culture shock. But if you're playing for a guy you want to play for, it's worth it. I mean.
My question is, how scared is Greg Campy right now?
I don't know. We got to figure out how to get him on the show.
I mean,
we can ask him.
He finally has a worthy adversary. He's clearly committed to not going to the tournament ever again. And I don't really know if they're going to get the chance at this point. I mean,
dude, shots fired.
What the heck? The rivalry. See this? Yeah. So. I.
Bob's just stuttering
Holy
his way
crap.
through not to offend anyone. I love it. You know who else would love to hear that is Campy. Campy loves that kind of stuff.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
We gotta remember. That's what this is about. This is about having fun. It's about having fun. Let's have fun with it. And
it's about time, because you've had that crosstown rivalry thing for the last 3 years, and it's basically been Oakland winning the whole time, and then
we're 2-8 against them.
Yeah. Do you really want to have that problem? I mean, now you're in a situation where you don't, where you see potentially the rivalry finally rekindling, because it isn't really much of a rivalry right now.
No, and really, the funny thing that the Oakland people always say, and they have to be reminded of, is we can't win the McCaffrey Trophy because we lack half the sports you need to win it.
Right.
Yep.
And they dominate us in everything pretty much except everything right now. But we could be very even with the soccer programs of basketball. But our second biggest sport is men's lacrosse, and our women's lacrosse team wasn't that bad this year either.
I would love to play lacrosse. God, I hate that. I hate not having a lacrosse team. I wrote an article in 2008 or 2009 that UWM needs to get on lacrosse, and they need to get on it pronto. And a bunch of Marquette people read it, and one started a program. And one they're like, "Hey, we should do this. This sounds smart, but let's do it over here. Make a Big East."
Yeah, wait 5 years. You may see a bunch of Horizon League teams get it, because you already have Cleveland State and Detroit with lacrosse teams. It's only a matter of time before a few more jump on board.
Well, lacrosse is the girls' sport, and if UW Madison and Marquette or Green Bay, if two of those three other teams in the state played baseball, I would be all about switching to lacrosse. But I'd like to keep baseball because it's the one trump card I got against Madison fans, no matter what. Is they can say whatever they want about my basketball team. I'll just say, all right, fine. Well, let's try a different sport. How about we play baseball? And they just get so pissed because they all want it and they don't have it.
No, they don't have a baseball team.
No, Madison cut their baseball team in '91.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know they didn't have a baseball team.
Now they're I think they might be the only Big Ten team that doesn't have a baseball team.
Oh.
They have softball, but not baseball.
Well, you learn something new every day.
There you go.
That's right.
So, yeah, but no, the rivalry needs to be rekindled, and you got Mike Davis on one side, Greg Campy on the other side, and so many opportunities for smack talk between Detroit and Oakland fans. I think you guys have been waiting for this for a while.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm excited. I hope he can. I don't expect him to do much in year one, but it'd be nice if they were competitive at least.
I think that's not too much to ask. I mean,
it's the Horizon League.
It really does depend on who he brings
with.
Win
more than 8 games.
Yeah,
especially if they get all of the Texas Southern recruits, and that gives them 2 JUCO guards.
Mm-hmm.
The point guard that Rashad was talking about, Harg or whatever, I can't pronounce his name, but he seems like he can shoot really well. Davis's kid looks like he'll transition to D1 pretty well. I mean, he had a lot of high major offers, A&M. He was committed to Houston for a long time, Tulsa. Some decent basketball schools were recruiting him, so he can clearly play. And then you got Josh coming back, and Josh has been a 15 to 20 point a game guy the whole time he's been in college.
It's good that McFauley is coming back, because if he wasn't, I mean,
here's
everybody who's leaving.
People don't realize his mom works at the school.
Oh.
Or works for a nonprofit connected to the school.
Nice.
So I don't know if it's just in the neighborhood or if it's connected to U of D, but I found that out just searching through the Detroit News comments because she was yelling at Tony Paul for saying he was transferring. when he wasn't. So, I mean, she's already in the area. That probably has a big part to do with it. And if Gerald is a shell of what he was his freshman year, they got some players. So, I think winning 9-10 games probably isn't that hard considering you've only won 8 the last 2 years. And some of those were, I'd say probably half of them were just bad coaching. I mean, it says something when your head coach was suspended and you won more games suspended than you did with him there.
It definitely says to me that the players didn't want to play for the guy.
Well, you can't be telling people, they need to suck certain things. It's just inappropriate.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
It's just inappropriate. And
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It's too bad that, someone who prides himself as such a Christian is going around telling people that. I don't think the guy's ever going to get a job again, and I feel bad for him because he seems like a really nice guy. But I coach at the high school level. I aspire to coach at the college level. I've never once thought of that coming out of my mouth or anything even remotely close to that. So
that's not good.
That was a thing, and then that it got to the paper, and then the school didn't address it because it's U of D. I think that's the funniest thing about this whole thing is
the radio silence.
The radio silence about everything. Like, even when I was in school, you could always get tidbits from players and stuff, and I think that's why, when Jeremiah was the SID and PJ a little bit, but I worked for him, so we have a better relationship. But me being such good friends with CB and knowing Chris Jenkins and being friends with McCallum Jr., I was able to pretty much know what was going on all the time, where now it's either people don't care, which could be part of it, or they've really kind of tightened up the ship a little bit. But even like when Paris Bass was falling apart, like that was public knowledge to everybody who went to the school.
Shit, that was public knowledge to a lot of us who didn't go to that school.
No kidding.
I mean, I don't know. U of D is really weird, and even the press conference was weird. They said, one of my buddies that was covering said, it was like all the media people were there, and then they get their little bits of footage, and they just leave. Like 2 or 3 people had in-depth interviews with them.
This is for Mike Davis's introductory press conference.
Yeah. Like there was probably only 12 people there. At least media people. I mean, I'm sure there was over 50 or 60. They probably got people that have nothing to do and don't even know we have a basketball team to come and sit there. But I don't know. U of D is in a weird spot, and it got weirder for the 5 years I was there, and I've heard in the last 2 years it's only gotten weirder. So I'm interested to see what Mike Davis was so excited about. Obviously, probably the chance to win at a different level, and they have money and whatnot, but coming from somebody who was the student body president, I really have not been happy with how the university has managed itself and presented itself in the media the last 2 years, and going 2 months without a coach and then it getting leaked 6 times. I mean, people were leaking that we were going after Patino, and then we weren't going after Patino, and then they made a statement that they weren't going after Patino, and then there's a rumor going around that we offered Andy Bronkema from Ferris State, and then we pulled the offer, and it has something to do with the fact that he's white.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah,
more than somewhat. Yeah,
and
I get some of it, but
now they're saying Terry Foster came out on his podcast and said we didn't offer Bronkema, and Bronkema was the one who's saying we didn't offer him. But Steve Bell, who's, in my opinion, and probably most high school basketball coaches' opinions, the best person for player ranking and evaluating talent in Michigan, was very upset on Twitter and his Instagram in the middle of AAU season because his buddy Andy Bronkema got screwed over somehow by U of D, and now a month and a half later there's radio silence on it. That's probably a story that will eventually come out and is probably going to be really good, because I'm pretty sure the exact wording of the tweet was, I thought all that racist stuff went away in Detroit in the 80s.
I was not aware of any of this. I mean, honestly, the fact that all the other stuff, all the other weird crap from the last 2 months was happening. I mean, that
I mean, I get it. I'll say this. I will say this. I get it if somebody, if like UD, if Detroit Mercy wants to look at like hiring a coach and thinks that hiring a black coach would be more I don't know about more palatable, but more of like it would be easier for the area recruits to kind of like accept. I'm definitely somebody who would just hire. I would always hire the best coach possible, because obviously black kids have no problem going to play for Greg Campy, or so I don't really see like that race. I don't think that it's a real thing, but I understand.
No, I don't think it is either. But I just found it interesting because that's not the first or last time I've heard that. And I mean, it's not the first, it's not going to be the last time that I've heard something along those lines involving U of D and athletics and administrative positions. And having been in one of those,
I mean, that's how we ended up with Val Jordan. If you guys aren't familiar, allegedly that was the reason that we ended up hiring LaVall Jordan. Not that because he was black, but because he was the best of the two candidates, and then the chancellor got cold feet about something. Because when Amanda Braun fires Rob, God damn, I wanted to not talk about that.
You went 45 minutes without. We could have closed out the show, and you wouldn't have been. This is my fault. I blame myself.
Well, when Amanda Braun fired Jeter, there was tremendous backlash because of all the things that she did leading up to it. A lot of the fans were, in my opinion, rightfully pissed off that she kind of screwed over the players in setting up this firing. Well, they decided that she's going to have a press conference to kind of explain, maybe not why, but like kind of like the excuse for the press conference is let's talk about how we're going to hire the next, what we're looking for in the next coach. But there was also like a bit of it was, well, I'll answer a couple questions as to why not. And a state senator who's an alumna who actually she's a lot more involved than some of our fans realized. She's always been kind of around the program. In fact, I met her through a UWM basketball game up at Green Bay like 10 years ago. It was a state senator, Lena Taylor, who's black, who serves a largely black sector of the population. She's a state senator for Wisconsin. And she literally comes to Amanda Braun's press conference and starts calling her out for racism, that she was not hiring, that she fired Rob Jeter, the black coach, so she could hire TJ Otzelberger, the white coach. And that she always hires white people, which, funny enough, is actually, there was a little truth to it. Now, Amanda Braun's not a racist. At least I don't think that she is.
Besides of all the other things that are wrong with her, you can assure us without beyond a reasonable doubt that she's not racist.
I would love to believe that Amanda Braun is not racist. I think that it's more that Amanda Braun just wasn't paying attention and didn't realize that of the 45 employees she had in the athletic department, that when she fired the men's basketball coach, she would be down to one black employee at a university that represents a city of 44% black population. Maybe she wasn't like paying too much attention to it, but she got called out for it. Well, Amanda Braun wanted to hire TJ Otzelberger. We knew this right away because Amanda Braun had followed TJ on Twitter in like November of the 15-16 season, several months before she fires Jeter. So we knew she was going to go hire him. And honestly, as much as TJ had the reputation of being one of the biggest cheaters in college basketball, I was fine with it because he's a Milwaukee guy, and Milwaukee reached its greatest heights under a guy who's an unabashed cheater in Bruce Pearl. So I'm personally, as long as it's like things that I'm fine with, which is like,
what kind of cheating are we fine with up there?
What?
Are bags of cash are okay, but not prostitutes? Is that how it works?
Oh, jeez.
Well, let me. There's a time and place to talk about Pearl's girls, and it's not tonight.
No, it is definitely not. In fact, on that note,
No, I just want to say that the chancellor made the decision. He told Amanda Braun he was going to hire T.J. Otzelberger. She tells T.J. TJ's on his way in from Ames, Iowa to take the job. And at 11 o'clock at night, Chancellor Mone calls Amanda Braun and says, you know what, I changed my mind. I'm going to go with LaValle Jordan. And she had already told the guy, she had told people in the athletic department, we're hiring this guy. They were planning, like, putting everything together because he was going to have a press conference, like, the next day. He had his kids asleep in the back of the car. And and she had to make the call, like, I'm really sorry, but the chancellor changed his mind. And a lot of people think that the reason he changed his mind was because he didn't want to be seen as hiring this white coach right after a state senator was shouting racist at his athletic director. So it comes into play, even though, like, I'm of the belief that you always hire the best person for the job. It doesn't matter what race. If it was a green person, transgendered Hindu from Mars, I don't care. If they're the best person for the job, they're the best person for the job. It doesn't matter to me. But I know that sometimes, like, I know that some coaching staffs will fill out a staff and you got to make sure that, like, they will say, I want to make sure that we hire a black guy, because, sometimes recruits are not comfortable with a white guy coming with a staff that's entirely made up of white guys, or maybe they're not entirely comfortable of a white head coach or something. I think it's ridiculous because like you were saying, I think it's something we should have moved past. But I understand that there may be the feeling of that from other places. I would hope that it's not the case, that we move past it, but I know that sentiment is out there. So it wouldn't surprise me to find out that this Ferris State, that the coach at Ferris State ended up, getting courted and then turned away from because he's, a white guy and they wanted a black guy as the head coach. Like, that wouldn't be a surprise to me.
And on the same coin,
go ahead.
It wouldn't surprise me that they reached out to Mike Davis first. Mike Davis told him, no, I'm not interested at all, leave me alone. Well, goes and interviews Bronkema, kind of likes him, not sure, circles back to Davis, and he's still on the fence and says, okay, I'll come talk to you. That wouldn't surprise me that scenario happened, because it sounds to me like that was a scenario.
That seems like the more plausible scenario.
That sounds pretty legit. That does definitely sound
white people from mid to northern Michigan being angry because they weren't hired and a black person was. And Bronkema is not the guy who's angry. It's these other talking heads. That also doesn't, if you know anything about the demographics of mid to northern Michigan, they're not very woke up there.
Aren't they planning on electing Kid Rock?
No way.
The senator of your state?
Who?
Oh yeah, Kid Rock.
Oh yeah, Kid Rock or Ted Nugent.
Oh, good, yeah.
Maybe both.
Jeez. Okay, yeah,
They just won a national title, didn't they? Didn't Ferris State just win a national title?
They did.
Yeah, Division II. Yes, they did.
Yeah, and they had a pretty good team too. They weren't bad. And
no,
I know a lot of our fans were really excited about the guy. And it seemed here like he was going to get hired, and then it fell apart. So I don't know if, to be honest with you, the way that Robert talked about Mike in the press conference, he probably wanted Mike all along. And
sure.
And him having been a commissioner in that conference when Mike Davis was there, it makes a lot of sense.
Was he the CUSA commissioner at some point?
No, he was the SWAC commissioner when Mike Davis got hired.
Vowles was?
Or the assistant commissioner, yeah.
I did not know
something
that.
Yeah. So.
I'll say this: if I'm looking at a guy who just won a Division II title and has had success in Division II, or I'm looking at Mike Davis, I think I would probably choose Mike Davis.
Oh,
the reason
so would I.
that Mike Davis is a winner at the Division I level.
Well, and here's the other thing about this cat from Ferris State. He's from northern Michigan. He is from, like, McBain. Like, damn near Mackinac Island.
Jeez.
And he coaches at
Beautiful
West
place.
State.
If anybody wants to plan a trip, take a trip to Mackinac Island. Absolutely.
Oh,
beautiful.
absolutely. But the difference in culture between Big Rapids, an hour north of Grand Rapids, that pretty much the basketball and football players are the black folks, and McNichols and Livernois, those are different worlds.
I think I should leave this. As we're wrapping it up, I think we should wrap it up with this tweet. I put out there like, hey, if you have any questions or any comments that you want us to share on the podcast, let me know. And who's Cartwright, which I don't know if people know who it is. I'll probably just leave it blank, leave it anonymous. He would be familiar to most Horizon League fans, but he says if Mike Davis can win there, he can turn goat piss into gasoline. Oh, that's priceless.
That sounds about right.
Well,
I own that guy up here, by the way. Just I haven't seen him forever. But yeah, there's cause for optimism at Detroit Mercy.
Yes, there clearly is. So.
There's cause for optimism, and I think this is a program where a lot of fans really see their future as a future in the Atlantic 10 or in a conference at that level. I honestly do not feel like that is a huge stretch. I think
listen to their financials. It is
okay.
Oh, yeah, but I'd like to see I'd like to see if they can have a similar a Loyola similar level of investment from a few.
Maybe.
And we have some donors who are getting up there.
You've got some great donors who may want to do. I mean, the Loyola going to the Final Four this year was exactly what those Loyola fans who gave a pooled $100 million to the athletic department at that university. It's exactly what they were looking for. They wanted a shot at a title before they not to be blunt, but kick the bucket. They put them together and said, let's do this. And Detroit has those people, like Carrick said. Detroit has those people, and now is the time for a basketball coach and really an athletic director to put together and say, look, Loyola is a program that was one of our chief rivals for a long time. They are a fellow Jesuit school. This is a school that we can not just emulate, but we should be able to. And the reason they were able to get to where they got was because of that initial major investment from their alumni. So what we need to do is put together a plan to, renovate Callahan Hall into a good home, a strong home for the 21st century. I personally love Callahan Hall because I think it's quite the unique facility, but I also know that the Gentile Center becoming the Gentile Arena was a huge part of why Loyola got to where they are. And I think Porter Moser is a heck of a great coach, but I also think Mike Davis is a heck of a great coach. And if they put together the plan and they can keep him around, they may be able to swing that kind of a jump in the program that can get them to an Atlantic 10 or get them to maybe they want to go to the MAAC or something. But I think that a lot of Detroit fans have lofty goals for the program, and I think that's good. And I think that Mike Davis is the right coach, and they just need to get the rest of the program around him and pushing to the future.
Absolutely.
All right. Yep. So, all right. So on that note, we're going to have and close it out. Carrick, we know you're over at Carrick_Jones on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for coming on.
Anytime,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Thanks, of course.
All right. And as always, we're at sportshacks.com. sportshax.com, and you can find the podcast wherever you find podcasts. And I'm not going over the list because we do it every episode. You know where we are. Just do a podcast search. So, all right, we'll see you again. We'll see you again soon, and thanks for listening.
Take care.